My husband and his mother locked me outside in the rain one night, while I was 6 months pregnant. They stood by the window, watching me cry and bleed, before turning off the lights like nothing happened. By midnight, I was back on that same porch, but this time, I wasn't alone. When they opened the door, my husband's face went pale, and his mother let out a scream as the wine glass slipped from her hand. Because the man standing beside me was, that night. The rain wasn't just falling, it was hammering against me, each icy drop a brutal reminder of the betrayal that had just shattered my world. I was pregnant, bleeding, and pounding on the door of what was supposed to be my home, while my husband and his mother watched me beg. Then, through the frosted glass, I saw it. My husband turning away, then his mother, and the living room light. It just clicked off, leaving me in absolute, terrifying darkness. That's when I felt the first cramp, a sharp, twisting warning in my belly. I pressed my hand against our daughter, feeling her move beneath my palm, and something inside me didn't just break, it shattered into a million pieces. The woman who loved him, who trusted him, who would have died for him. She died on that porch, in that freezing rain. But someone else was born. I didn't know it then, but at that exact moment, a sleek black car was turning onto our street. Inside sat a man I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. A man who, years ago, had promised to destroy anyone who hurt me. A man I had walked away from because I thought I'd found something safer, something gentler. God, I was so wrong. When those headlights sliced through the rain and illuminated my broken, shaking, bleeding form collapsed on the porch steps, I looked up. His eyes met mine, and I swear, they held pure murder. "Hello, little sister," he said, his voice soft as silk, yet sharp as a blade. "Tell me who did this to you, and God help them." I told him everything. And what happened next, what we did to them. It still keeps me up at night. Not with guilt, though. No. Pure, unadulterated satisfaction. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how I got here. You need to understand what they took from me before I tell you what I took from them. This is the story of how I lost everything and how I made damn sure they lost more. Just 6 months earlier, I genuinely believed I was living a fairy tale. My name is Elena. I was 28, 4 months pregnant, and married to a man I thought hung the moon, Thomas Adonis. God, even his name sounded like it belonged in a romance novel. Tall, blonde, with those soft gray eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled at me. When we met 2 years ago at that coffee shop downtown, I actually, truly believed in love at first sight. I should have known better. See, I came from nothing. A group home, foster care, the whole tragic backstory. No family, no safety net, no one to warn me about men like Thomas or women like his mother. I had only one person in the world who had ever truly been family to me. Alexei Volov. We weren't related by blood, but we grew up in the same group home from the time I was 7 and he was 12. Alexei was the boy who taught me how to fight, how to survive, how to never let them see you cry. When he aged out of the system at 18, he kissed my forehead and made me a promise. "I'm going to build an empire, little Elena. And when I do, you'll never want for anything again." I believed him because Alexei never lied. But his empire, when it came, was built on foundations I couldn't accept. Money laundering, underground gambling, things he never spelled out, but I wasn't naive enough to ignore. When he found me at 25 and offered me a place in his world, I said no. "I want something clean," I told him. "Something normal. A real life." He looked at me with those ice blue eyes that had seen too much too young and nodded slowly. "If that's what you need." But Elena, when the normal world shows you what it really is, when it chews you up and spits you out, you call me. No matter what, no matter when. I promised I would, but I never thought I'd need to. Then I met Thomas. With his normal job as a pharmaceutical sales rep, his normal suburban house, his normal life. He was everything Alexei wasn't. Soft, safe, ordinary. When he proposed after 6 months, I said yes without hesitation. I was pregnant within a year, and I honestly thought I had finally found the family I'd always dreamed of. But there was one crack in my perfect picture. Diane, Thomas's mother. She was a widow who had raised him alone after his father died when Thomas was 10. She lived in a cottage on our property, Thomas insisted. And I didn't argue, because what kind of woman denies a man his mother? But from the moment I moved into that house, I felt her eyes on me, judging me, always finding me lacking. She just needs time to warm up to you, Thomas would say, kissing my temple. You're the first woman I've ever brought home. She's protective. Protective was a massive understatement. Diane criticized everything. The way I cleaned wasn't right. The way I cooked wasn't how Thomas liked it. The way I dressed was too provocative, too casual, too everything. When I got pregnant, it only got worse. You need to be more careful with my grandson, she'd say, eyeing my belly like it was her personal property. No coffee. No stress. You shouldn't be working in your condition. It's a girl, I'd say quietly. Ultrasounds are wrong all the time. I know it's a boy. A mother knows these things. I worked as a freelance graphic designer from home, which gave me flexibility, but also meant I was always there, always under her microscope. Thomas traveled for work 3 weeks out of every month, leaving me alone with Diane's constant commentary, her key to our house that she used freely, her rearranging of my kitchen, and her constant nagging over my inadequacies. But I endured it, because I loved Thomas, and because every time he came home, he made me feel cherished. He'd bring me flowers, rub my swollen feet, whisper to our daughter in my belly about how much he loved her already. I was so blind. The beginning of the end started 3 weeks before that terrible night. Thomas came home from a business trip to Chicago, and something was different. He was distracted, distant. He stopped touching me, stopped asking about the baby, stopped looking me in the eyes. Are you okay? I asked one night as we lay in bed, the space between us feeling like an ocean. Fine, just tired. Work stress. But I noticed other things. Hushed phone calls he'd take in the garage. The way he'd angle his phone away from me when texting. The smell of perfume on his jacket collar, floral, expensive, nothing like the simple lavender I wore. When I mentioned it to Diane, looking for reassurance that I was being paranoid, she gave me a look I couldn't decipher. Thomas is a good man with a demanding job, she said crisply. Perhaps if you made more effort with your appearance, he wouldn't seem so distant. Pregnancy is no excuse to let yourself go. I looked down at my body, the belly I was growing our child in, the swollen ankles, the exhaustion etched into my face. I had never felt uglier or more alone. That weekend, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through Thomas's phone while he was in the shower. What I found made my blood run cold. Messages, hundreds of them, to a contact saved simply as J. Asterisk, can't stop thinking about Chicago. My wife is getting suspicious. We need to be more careful. I wish I could wake up next to you instead of her.
Soon.
I promise. Just need to handle things the right way. Asterisk, the bathroom door opened. Steam poured out. Thomas emerged, towel around his waist, and froze when he saw me holding his phone. What are you doing? His voice was sharp. Dangerous. Who's Jay? My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then his face transformed into something I'd never seen before.
Cold. Hard.
Cool. You went through my phone? You're cheating on me. I'm pregnant with your baby and you're... Don't be dramatic, Elena. He snatched the phone from my hands. They're just messages. Just messages? You said you wished you could wake up next to her instead of me. Can you blame me? The words came out casual, like he was commenting on the weather. Look at yourself. You've gained 40 pounds. You cry all the time. You're exhausted by 8 p.m. Dating you is fun, but this... He gestured at my pregnant body with disgust. This isn't what I signed up for. I felt like he'd physically struck me. I'm carrying your child. Are you? He tilted his head, and I saw cruelty dance in those gray eyes I'd once loved. How can I be sure? You came from nothing, Elena. No family, no background. How do I know you weren't sleeping around looking for a meal ticket? The accusation was so outrageous, so baseless. I actually laughed. A broken, hysterical sound. I've never been with anyone but you.
You know that.
You were my first. So he said, but women lie. Thomas, please. I reached for him, but he stepped back like my touch would contaminate him. What's happening?
This isn't you.
Is it the pregnancy hormones? Are you scared? We can talk about this. We can. I don't want to talk. I want you to stay out of my private business. He grabbed his keys and walked out, leaving me standing in our bedroom, shaking and crying, my hands wrapped protectively around my belly. I should have called Alexei then, but I was still hoping this was temporary insanity, that my Thomas would come back, that our family could survive this. I was such a fool. The next 2 weeks were psychological warfare, though I didn't recognize it at the time. Thomas started coming home later and later. He stopped sleeping in our bed, claiming the guest room was quieter. He stopped asking about my doctor's appointments, stopped caring when I told him our daughter was healthy and growing.
But worse was Diane.
She ramped up her criticism to outright cruelty. She told me I was too stupid to be a mother, that I would ruin her grandson with my poverty-stricken genetics, that Thomas deserved better than trash from the system. At least when he's with Jessica, he's with someone of quality, she said one afternoon while I was trying to eat lunch, my hands shaking with rage and heartbreak. Jessica? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Oh, you know about her. Diane smiled, slow and venomous. Of course, I introduced them. She's the daughter of Thomas's boss. Educated, sophisticated, from a good family. Everything you're not. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just an affair. This was a plan. You're trying to break us up, I whispered. I'm trying to save my son from a mistake. You were a fun distraction, but now you're an anchor. That baby. She looked at my belly with something like disgust. Thomas doesn't even want it. He wanted you to get rid of it, but you refused. You trapped him. That's not true. He said he wanted a family. He said what he needed to say to keep you happy. Men do that. She leaned in close, her breath sour. Here's what's going to happen, Elena. You're going to leave. You're going to disappear back into whatever gutter you crawled out of. You're going to have that baby alone, and you're not going to ask Thomas for a single penny. We're married. He has legal obligations, which his lawyer will fight at every turn. He signed a prenup, remember? And it has a very interesting infidelity clause. Her smile widened. If you're found to have cheated, you get nothing. Not the house, not alimony, nothing. I haven't cheated. Can you prove that? Because I have a very nice young man who's willing to testify that you two had an affair. He has photos, timestamps, hotel receipts, all fabricated, of course, but very convincing. Thomas's lawyer is very thorough. I stared at her, this woman I had tried so hard to please, and saw pure evil looking back at me. Why? My voice broke. What did I ever do to you? You existed. You wormed your way into my son's life with your sob story and your big eyes and your pathetic desperation for family. You're not good enough for him. You never were. She left me sitting at my kitchen table, my lunch untouched, my whole world crumbling. That night, I tried one more time to reach Thomas. I waited up for him, wearing the dress he used to say was his favorite, my hair done, my face carefully made up to hide the exhaustion and tears. He came home at midnight, reeking of perfume and wine. We need to talk, I said. He didn't even look at me. I'm tired. Thomas, please. Your mother said things today. Terrible things about me leaving, about fabricating an affair. Maybe you should leave. He finally met my eyes, and they were empty of anything resembling love. This isn't working, Elena. You're miserable. I'm miserable. Let's just end this before it gets messy. I'm pregnant. Yeah, you keep saying that like it's supposed to change something. He headed for the stairs. I'll have my lawyer draw up separation papers. You can keep the car. That's more than generous, considering the prenup. I'm not leaving my home. I'm not leaving you. He turned, and something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe. Or calculation.
Fine.
See how that works out for you. Something about his tone sent ice through my veins. But I was too tired, too heartbroken, too pregnant to process it. I went to bed alone and cried until I made myself sick. I didn't know it then, but the trap was already set. I just hadn't sprung it yet. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was trash day and I had dragged the bins to the curb that morning despite the protests from my back and the way my belly made everything harder. It was October, and the weather had turned cold and wet, the kind of bone-deep damp that made my whole body ache. Thomas had been home for 2 days, which was unusual. He'd been working from the guest room, barely speaking to me, treating me like an inconvenient roommate rather than his wife. Diane had been over every day, the two of them having hushed conversations that would stop the moment I entered a room. I should have known something was coming. I could feel it in the air, thick and heavy like the storm clouds gathering outside. Around 6 p.m., I was making dinner. Chicken soup, something simple that wouldn't upset my pregnancy-sensitive stomach. Thomas came into the kitchen, and I felt a flutter of hope when he actually looked at me. "We need to talk," he said. Those 4 words. I'd said them to him so many times in the past weeks, begging for communication, for connection, for some explanation of how we'd gotten here. Now he was saying them to me, and I knew I wasn't going to like what came next. Okay. I turned off the stove, wiped my hands on my apron, and followed him to the living room. Diane was already there, sitting in the armchair like a queen on a throne. "Why is your mother here?" I asked. "She deserves to hear this, too." Thomas sat on the couch, but didn't invite me to join him. I remained standing, my hand instinctively going to my belly, our daughter kicking as if she could sense my anxiety. "Hear what?" "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air. I'd known they were coming, had felt them building for weeks. But hearing them out loud still felt like a punch to the gut.
No. My voice was small, childlike.
"No, we can work through this. Marriage counseling or, I don't want to work through it. I don't love you anymore, Elena." I'm not sure I ever really did. He said it so casually, like he was discussing what to have for dinner. "You were convenient. You seemed like you'd be easy." Easy, I repeated numbly. Low maintenance. Grateful. "You came from nothing, so I thought you'd appreciate what I gave you. But you turned out to be just as demanding as any other woman, more so, with all your emotional needs and your constant need for reassurance." Diane made a sound of agreement, and I felt hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred for the first time in my life. "I'm pregnant with your baby," I said, my voice hardening. "You don't get to just walk away." "Surely I do. And I'm taking the house. Per the prenup, since you're the one refusing to leave, and since there's evidence of your infidelity." "There is no evidence because I never cheated." "Tell that to the judge." He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned it toward me. Photos. Photos of me with a man I'd never seen before, having coffee, walking in the park. One of me entering a hotel, him following minutes later. They were photoshopped, badly if you looked closely, but convincing enough at first glance. "That's not real," I whispered. "Those are fake. You know they're fake. Can you prove it?" "Because Adam, that's his name by the way, he's willing to testify to your affair. He'll say it's been going on for months. That the baby might even be his." The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. "Why are you doing this?" For the first time, Thomas showed real emotion. Annoyance. "Because you won't just leave like you're supposed to. You were supposed to be so broken up about my cheating that you'd run away with your tail between your legs. But instead, you stayed, crying and begging and making this difficult." "I stayed because I love you. Because we're married." "Well, I don't love you. I love Jessica. I'm going to marry her as soon as our divorce is final. She's pregnant, too, actually due around the same time as you. But her baby? That's a baby I actually want." The cruelty of it took my breath away. This wasn't the man I married. This was a stranger wearing his face. "You need to pack your things and be gone by morning," Diane said, standing up. "We've been more than patient with you. This is my house, too. Actually, it's Thomas's house. Only his name is on the deed. You have no legal right to be here." Her smile was triumphant. "You have nothing, Elena. No house, no husband, no family to run to. You're completely alone, just like you've always been. Just like you deserve to be. Something snapped inside me. I lunged for her, my hands reaching for her throat, ready to wipe that smug smile off her face permanently. But Thomas grabbed me, his fingers digging painfully into my arms, and threw me backward. I stumbled, my pregnant belly throwing off my balance, and fell hard against the coffee table. Pain exploded through my side, sharp and terrifying. "Don't touch my mother," Thomas snarled, standing over me like I was trash. I struggled to my feet, clutching my side, checking frantically for bleeding or fluid or any sign that I'd hurt the baby. My daughter kicked, strong and angry, and I nearly sobbed with relief. "I'm not leaving," I said through clenched teeth. "Call your lawyers, show your fake photos, do whatever you want. I'm not leaving." Thomas and Diane exchanged a look. Then he shrugged. "Fine," he said, "but I'm done being polite about this." He grabbed my arm again, dragging me toward the front door. I fought him, screaming, clawing at his hands, but he was so much stronger than me. He opened the door, and the cold October rain blew in, soaking us both instantly. Thomas stopped. "Please." He threw me out onto the porch. I landed hard on my hands and knees, my palms scraping against the rough concrete. Before I could get up, I heard the deadbolt click. I scrambled to my feet and pounded on the door. "Let me in. Let me in." Through the frosted glass, I could see them both standing there, watching me. "Please," I screamed, my voice raw. "I don't have my phone. I don't have my keys. I don't have anything." The rain came down harder, soaking through my thin sweater and leggings in seconds. It was 40 degrees, maybe less, with the wind chill. I was shivering violently, my teeth chattering so hard I bit my tongue and tasted blood. "Thomas,
Please.
think of the baby. Your daughter." He turned away. Diane lingered a moment longer, and even through the distorted glass, I could see her smile. Then the living room light went off, plunging me into darkness. I don't know how long I stood there pounding on that door. Minutes, hours. Time became meaningless, measured only in the increasing cold seeping into my bones and the growing desperation in my chest. The neighborhood was quiet. Our house sat on 2 acres, far enough from the neighbors that no one could hear me screaming. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and lightning cracked across the sky, followed by thunder that made my whole body flinch. I was soaked to the skin, shaking so hard I could barely stand. My hands were bleeding from pounding on the door. My knees were scraped from falling. But worse than the physical pain was the emotional devastation. This was the man I loved, the man I'd married, the man whose baby I was carrying, and he'd thrown me out into a storm like I was garbage. I staggered down the porch steps, thinking maybe I could break a window, get back inside somehow. But the first 4 windows were all locked, and I didn't have the strength to break them. I tried the garage, but the keypad had been changed. I tried the back door, but it was locked too. They planned this. Every exit, every entrance, every possible way back inside, they'd sealed them all. I ended up back on the front porch, huddled against the door, trying to preserve what little body heat I had left. My daughter was moving frantically inside me, disturbed by my elevated heart rate and dropping body temperature. I wrapped my arms around my belly, crying and apologizing to her. "I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry. Mommy's going to figure this out. We're going to be okay." But I didn't know how. I had no phone, no wallet, no keys, no coat. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away, and I wasn't sure I could walk that far in my condition. And even if I could, what would I tell them? My husband locked me out? They'd probably just tell me to work it out with him. Couples dispute, not their business. That's when I felt it. The cramp. It started low in my abdomen, a tightening sensation that made me gasp. At first, I thought it was just from the cold or from the stress. But then it happened again, stronger this time, and I felt something warm trickle down my inner thigh. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, please no." I pressed my hand between my legs and brought it back up into the faint glow of the porch light.
Blood.
Not a lot, but enough. Enough to send pure terror, through my system. Thomas. I pounded on the door again, harder, my bloody hand leaving prints on the white painted wood. Thomas. Something's wrong. The baby. Please. Nothing. No response. The house stayed dark and silent. I was going to lose her. I was going to lose my daughter on this porch, in the rain, alone, while my husband and his mother sat inside and listened to me beg. The cramp came again, sharper this time, and I doubled over, crying out in pain. This couldn't be happening. I was only 6 months along. She was too small, too early. If I went into labor now, she wouldn't survive. Please. I sobbed, not sure who I was talking to anymore. God, the universe, anyone who might be listening. Please, don't take my baby. She's all I have. Please. Another cramp, and more blood. I could feel it now, warm against the cold rain soaking into my leggings. I needed a hospital. I needed help. I needed Alexei. His words from 3 years ago came back to me. Asterisk when the normal world shows you what it really is. When it chews you up and spits you out, you call me. No matter what. No matter when, asterisk, but I didn't have a phone. I couldn't call anyone. I was going to die here. Or my baby was. Or both of us. I collapsed on the porch steps, the rain hammering down on me like punishment. The cold was making me drowsy, which some distant part of my brain recognized as dangerous. Hypothermia. I was going into hypothermia. I closed my eyes, wrapped my arms around my belly, and prayed for a miracle I didn't believe would come. And then I saw headlights. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. The headlights cut through the rain like angels' wings, too bright to be real. A car was pulling into the driveway. A sleek black sedan that looked like it cost more than I'd make in 5 years. It stopped at the edge of the driveway. The driver's door opened, and Alexei Volov stepped out into the rain. He looked exactly like I remembered, tall and lean, all sharp angles and contained violence. His dark hair was longer now, pulled back in a way that emphasized his severe cheekbones and those ice-blue eyes that missed nothing. He wore an expensive black suit that was getting soaked, but he didn't seem to care. He took one look at me, collapsed on the porch, bleeding, shaking, broken, and his face transformed into something terrifying. Elena. My name was a growl, barely human. He crossed the distance between us in long strides, shrugging off his suit jacket as he moved. Within seconds, he was kneeling beside me, wrapping the jacket around my shoulders. It was still warm from his body heat, and I sobbed at the sensation of warmth after so long in the cold. Who did this to you? His hands were gentle as they touched my face, my arms, checking for injuries, but his voice promised murder.
How?
I could barely form words through my chattering teeth. How are you here? I have alerts set up. Your name, your address. One of my people saw an ambulance get dispatched here 2 hours ago, then canceled. I came to check. His eyes dropped to my belly, to the blood on my legs, and his jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. You're pregnant. 6 months. There's blood. Cramping the baby. We're getting you to a hospital now. He started to lift me, but I grabbed his arm. Alexei, wait. Thomas, his mother, they did this. They locked me out. They want me to lose the baby. For a moment, he went perfectly still. Then he looked at the house, at the dark windows, at the locked door with my bloody handprints all over it. They're inside. His voice was soft.
Yes.
But the baby first. Then I deal with them. He lifted me into his arms like I weighed nothing, cradling me against his chest. The cold had made me so weak, I couldn't even protest. I've got you, little sister. No one's going to hurt you again. He carried me to his car and placed me gently in the back seat. Within seconds, he had the heat blasting and was wrapping me in a blanket he pulled from the trunk. Then he got in the driver's seat, and we were moving fast, racing through the rain toward the hospital. I drifted in and out of consciousness during the drive, but I remember fragments. Alexei on the phone, speaking rapid Russian to someone, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror, seeing something in them that was both comforting and terrifying. his hand reaching back to squeeze mine when another cramp hit, and I cried out, "Stay with me, Elena. Just a little longer." We made it to the emergency room in 15 minutes, a drive that should have taken 30. Alexei carried me in, and suddenly there were doctors and nurses everywhere. Hands touching me, voices asking questions, a wheelchair appearing beneath me. "Are you the father?" a nurse asked Alexei.
No.
His hand was on my shoulder, warm and grounding. "But I'm her family. I'm all she has." "Sir, you'll need to wait in the... I'm not leaving her." Something in his voice made the nurse take a step back. "You can stay until we get her stabilized." They rushed me to an exam room, cutting off my wet clothes, attaching monitors, checking my vitals. Another cramp hit, and I screamed, certain I was losing her. "Baby's heartbeat is strong," a doctor said, her hands on my belly. 130 beats per minute.
Good.
"You're not in active labor. These are stress contractions." "When did the bleeding start?" "Maybe an hour ago." "I don't know." Time had become meaningless. "And you were outside in the cold for how long?" "I don't know. 2 hours, maybe more." The doctor's face tightened, but she didn't comment. They did an ultrasound, checked my cervix, took blood samples. Every second felt like an eternity, waiting to hear if my daughter was going to survive. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes, the doctor gave me the verdict. "Your baby is fine. You're fine." The bleeding was from cervical irritation. Stress and the cold caused some minor abrasions, but nothing serious. "Your core temperature is dangerously low, and you're dehydrated and exhausted, but we can fix that. We're going to admit you overnight for observation, get some warm fluids in you. Make sure those contractions stop. But your daughter is a fighter. She's holding on." I broke down completely, sobbing with relief, so intense it hurt. Alexei's hand found mine and squeezed.
"See?
She's like her mother. Stubborn." They moved me to a private room. Somehow, Alexei arranged that and hooked me up to IVs and monitors. The warm fluids and heated blankets slowly brought my body temperature back up. The contractions spaced out, then stopped. My daughter's heartbeat remained strong and steady on the monitor. I was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. Once the doctors left us alone, Alexei pulled a chair close to my bedside and sat down. In the harsh hospital lighting, I could see the details I'd missed before. The expensive watch, the tailored suit, the hardness in his eyes that had never been there when we were young. "Tell me everything," he said quietly.
So I did.
I told him about meeting Thomas, about the whirlwind romance, about thinking I'd found the safe, normal life I'd always wanted. I told him about Diane, about the way she'd poisoned everything, about Thomas's affair and the fake evidence and the cruelty of these last few weeks. I told him about tonight, about being thrown out, about begging to be let back in while my husband and his mother watched me suffer. By the time I finished, Alexei's face could have been carved from marble. "You told me once you wanted something clean," he said finally. "Something normal. Is this what normal gets you, Elena? Locked out in the rain, pregnant and bleeding, by a man who vowed to cherish you." "I was wrong," I whispered. "I was so wrong." "Yes, you were." He leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. "So now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer. Do you want my help? Not just help getting back on your feet. Not just money or a place to stay." His voice dropped lower, darker. "Do you want me to make them pay for what they did to you? To your daughter?" I should have said no. I should have been horrified. The old Elena, the one who wanted something clean and normal, she would have refused. But that Elena had died on that porch. "Yes," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "I want them destroyed." Alexei smiled. "Slow. Dangerous. Then sleep, little sister. Rest and heal. Because tomorrow we go to war." I slept fitfully that night, plagued by nightmares of the rain and the locked door and Thomas's cold eyes. But every time I woke, gasping, Alexei was there. He pulled his chair right next to my bed and sat there all night, watching over me like some dark guardian angel. "You should go home," I told him around 3 a.m. "Get some sleep." I am home. Wherever you are, that's home. He said it matter-of-factly, like it was simply truth. Go back to sleep. In the morning, the doctors checked me again. The bleeding had stopped completely. The contractions were gone. My daughter's heartbeat was strong and perfect. Physically, we had both survived. You're very lucky, the doctor said. Exposure to cold like that, the stress, it could have triggered preterm labor. You need to take it easy for the next few days. No stress, lots of rest, and come back immediately if there's any more bleeding or contractions. She'll be monitored around the clock, Alexei said from his position by the window. The doctor looked between us, clearly curious about our relationship, but professional enough not to ask. Good. You're free to go, but take care of yourself. You and your baby have been through a trauma. After she left, a nurse brought me clothes. Soft yoga pants, a warm sweater, thick socks, all brand new, with tags still on them. Your brother brought these, she said with a smile. I looked at Alexei, who shrugged. I sent someone shopping. Your old clothes were destroyed. Once I was dressed and discharged, Alexei led me out to his car. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and gray. As he helped me into the passenger seat, I caught sight of myself in the side mirror. I looked like a ghost, pale, bruised, my eyes hollow and haunted. My hair was a mess, still damp from the rain. My split knuckles were bandaged. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman who had been broken. Where are we going? I asked as Alexei started the car. My place. You'll stay with me until we figure this out. I need to get my things from the house.
No.
His voice was firm. You're not going near that place without me, and we're not going back until we're ready to end this. End this?
How?
He glanced at me, and I saw calculation in those ice-blue eyes. How much do you know about your husband's job? He's in pharmaceutical sales, makes good money, travels a lot. Where does he travel?
I thought about it.
Chicago mostly, sometimes New York. He mentioned Miami a few times. Alexei's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Interesting cities. All of them have major ports, major transportation hubs. What does that have to do with anything? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking in rapid Russian. I'd picked up enough over the years to catch a few words. Asterisk investigate. Finances. Asterisk. When he hung up, he looked at me. I'm going to dig into Thomas's life. His job, his finances, his associates. Everything. Men who are cruel to their wives often have other secrets. You think he's into something illegal? I think everyone has secrets. We just need to find his. He reached over and took my hand. But that's only part of it, Elena. I need to know what you want. Revenge takes many forms. Do you want him hurt? Humiliated? Destroyed financially? Criminally? I need to know the boundaries. I thought about it.
Really thought about it.
About Thomas throwing me out into the rain. About Diane's triumphant smile. About the terror of thinking I was losing my baby while they sat inside, warm and safe and uncaring. I want them to lose everything, I said slowly. I want them to feel the fear I felt, the helplessness. I want Thomas to lose his job, his girlfriend, his future. I want Diane to watch her precious son fall apart. I want them both to know it was me who did it and that they brought it on themselves. Okay. Alexei nodded. We can do that, but it has to be smart. Legal, if possible. I won't have you caught up in anything that could hurt you or take you away from your daughter. I thought you weren't exactly legal these days. He smiled.
A real one this time.
I've diversified. Yes, I have business interests that are gray. But I also have legitimate holdings. Property investments, a security consulting firm. I've learned that the best revenge is the kind you can't be prosecuted for. We drove for another 20 minutes, leaving the suburbs behind and entering a part of the city I rarely visited, where old warehouses had been converted into expensive lofts, where the restaurants had names in French and Italian, where money whispered instead of shouted. Alexei's building was a converted textile factory, all exposed brick and massive windows. We took a private elevator to the top floor, which opened directly into his loft. It was stunning. 20-foot ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows. Overlooking the river, Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my car. But it was also clearly lived in. Books on the shelves, a laptop open on the dining table, a coffee cup next to the sink. Guest room is through there, Alexei said, pointing. It has its own bathroom. I'll have some more clothes brought over for you. Make yourself at home. Alexei. I turned to face him. Why are you doing this? He looked at me for a long moment. You're the only family I've ever had. The only person who ever saw me as something other than a problem to be managed or a weapon to be used. When we were kids and I'd get in fights, you'd patch me up. When I aged out and had nowhere to go, you cried like I was dying. You're my sister in every way that matters. Did you really think I'd let someone hurt you and do nothing? Tears welled in my eyes. I shouldn't have pushed you away. You needed to find your own path. I understood that. But now, the normal world, the safe world? It's just as cruel as the one I live in. The only difference is that I'm honest about what I am. He pulled me into a hug, careful of my belly, and I let myself cry against his chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt safe. Rest today, he said when I finally pulled back. Tomorrow, we start planning. And Elena, I promise you this. Before we're done, Thomas Adonis and his bastard of a mother will wish they'd never met you. 3 days later, I sat at Alexei's dining table, surrounded by papers, photographs, and a laptop, staring at evidence of my husband's double life. Alexei had been thorough. He'd called in favors from people I didn't ask about, used resources I pretended not to notice. The picture that emerged was damning. Thomas Adonis wasn't just a pharmaceutical sales rep, he was a drug trafficker. The pharmaceutical job was real, but it was a front. He used his legitimate business trips to transport illegal prescription medications, opioids mostly, from manufacturers to distributors. The sales he made were real, but they were nothing compared to what he made on the side. Chicago, New York, Miami, all major distribution hubs for the black market pharmaceutical trade. He's been doing this for at least 5 years, Alexei said, pointing to financial records. See these deposits? They're irregular, varied amounts, different sources. Classic money laundering pattern. He's moving at least $50,000 a month in illegal product. How did I not know? I felt sick. How did I not see this? Because you trusted him. And because he was good at hiding it. Alexei pulled up another file. But it gets better. Guess who else is involved? He turned the laptop toward me. Photos of Diane meeting with men I didn't recognize, handing over packages, receiving envelopes. His mother. His partner. She's the one with the connections. Her late husband, Thomas's father, he wasn't an accountant like she claimed. He was mid-level organized crime, ran a prescription fraud ring in the 90s. When he died, Diane took over some of his contacts. When Thomas was old enough, she brought him into the business. The betrayal cut deeper. All this time, while Diane was criticizing my cooking and my cleaning and my worthiness, she was a criminal. They both were. And Jessica? I had to know. Alexei's expression darkened. Jessica Hartman, daughter of Lawrence Hartman, Thomas's boss at the pharmaceutical company. She's 23, fresh out of college, and yes, she's pregnant. But here's the interesting part. Lawrence Hartman is also part of the distribution network. Thomas isn't just sleeping with Jessica, he's cementing a business alliance. I sat back, my mind reeling. My entire marriage had been a lie. Every moment, every touch, every whispered "I love you." All of it built on deception. There's more, Alexei said quietly. The prenup you signed, I had a lawyer look at it. The infidelity clause only goes one way. If you cheat, you get nothing. But there's no penalty for Thomas. And the fabricated evidence of your affair? They were going to use that not just to divorce you, but to claim the baby isn't his. To avoid any child support or parental rights. They wanted to erase us, I whispered. Completely. Yes. You were convenient until you got inconvenient. The pregnancy wasn't part of their plan. I looked down at my belly, at the swell where my daughter was growing, where she was moving and hiccuping and getting ready to be born in a few months. They had wanted to erase her, to pretend she didn't exist. The rage that filled me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. "What do we do?" I asked. Alexei smiled. "We have several options. Option 1. I take this evidence to the DA. Thomas, Diane, and Lawrence Hartman all go to prison. You divorce Thomas while he's in custody, get full custody of your daughter, and they spend the next 20 years in federal prison." "That's good," I said, "but it's not enough." "I thought you'd say that." His smile softened slightly. "Option 2. We destroy them piece by piece. Financial ruin, public humiliation, and then prison. We take everything from them first. Reputation, money, freedom. We make them suffer, and then we make sure they can never hurt anyone again." "How long would that take?" "Few weeks, maybe a month. We'd need to be strategic, patient." He looked at me carefully. "And you'd need to play a part."
Can you do that?
"Can you face him again?" I thought about the porch, the rain, the blood. I thought about my daughter fighting to survive inside me while her father listened to me beg. "Yes," I said. "Tell me what to do." The plan was elegant in its cruelty. First, I had to go back. I had to face Thomas and Diane, act broken and defeated, and convince them they'd won. It would give us time to maneuver, to set up the dominoes that would destroy them. "You don't have to do this," Alexei said the night before we executed Phase 1. "Say the word and we go straight to the authorities." "No," I said, touching my belly where my daughter was doing somersaults. "I want them to feel safe first. I want them to think they broke me, and then I want to watch them fall." So on a Friday evening, exactly 1 week after the night they'd locked me out, Alexei drove me back to the house. It looked the same. Perfect lawn, perfect garden, perfect suburban facade. You'd never know that something monstrous lived inside. "I'll be right here," Alexei said. He parked down the street, out of sight, but close enough to reach me in seconds. He pressed a small device into my palm. A panic button, disguised as a bracelet. "One press, and I'm coming in. Don't be brave. Don't take chances." "I won't." I kissed his cheek. 2 hours. Then come get me. I walked up the driveway, my heart pounding. I dressed carefully. Old maternity clothes, no makeup, my hair limp and unstyled. I looked defeated because I needed them to think I was. I rang the doorbell. For a long moment, nothing. Then the door opened, and Thomas stood there, looking annoyed. "Elena, what do you want?" Up close, I could see the details I'd missed when I loved him. The weakness in his jaw, the calculation in his eyes, the cruel set of his mouth. How had I ever thought he was handsome? "I need to get my things," I said, keeping my voice small and broken. "Please, just my clothes and my laptop. That's all." "You have some nerve showing up here."
I know. I'm sorry.
I don't have anything. I've been staying at a shelter, and they said I need to have my own clothes for job interviews." "A shelter?" Thomas laughed. "God, that's pathetic." I bit back the rage and forced tears into my eyes. It wasn't hard. "Please, Thomas. I won't take long. Just let me grab my stuff, and I'll go. You'll never have to see me again." He studied me for a moment, then stepped aside. "Fine, 15 minutes. Then you're gone." I stepped into the house, my house, that I'd made a home, that I'd dreamed of raising my daughter in and felt nothing but hatred for it. Diane emerged from the kitchen, and her eyebrows rose when she saw me. "You're back?" "Just getting her things," Thomas said dismissively. "She's leaving." "Good." Diane looked me up and down, taking in my disheveled appearance with satisfaction. "You look terrible." "Thank you for noticing." I headed for the stairs, but Diane's voice stopped me. "How's the baby?" I turned slowly.
Fine.
"Why do you care?" "I don't particularly. Just curious if she survived your dramatic tantrum in the rain." My hand tightened on the railing. "She survived. She's strong." "Pity." Diane's smile was vicious. It would have been simpler if nature had taken care of Thomas's problem for him. I wanted to fly at her, to claw that smile off her face. But instead, I just turned and climbed the stairs, counting my breaths, reminding myself of the plan. In the bedroom I'd shared with Thomas, where I'd thought we'd made love, but where he'd apparently just been using me. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents. But I also did what I'd really come to do. I planted bugs. Tiny listening devices that Alexei had given me. Placed strategically in the bedroom, the home office, the living room. I'd have to be quick, subtle, but I managed to place 3 of them before my 15 minutes were up. I also grabbed files from Thomas's home office, copies of his business records, financial statements, anything that might be useful. I stuffed them in my laptop bag and covered them with a sweater. When I came back downstairs, dragging my suitcase, Thomas was on the phone. He held up a finger, making me wait like a servant. "Tell Jessica I'll be there tomorrow." Yeah, the old problem is taking care of itself. She's got nothing. Nowhere to go. Once she signs the papers, we're free and clear. He looked at me with contempt. He hung up and turned to me. "My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. You'll sign. You'll waive all claims to property and support, and we'll be done." "What about the baby? What about her?" "She's your problem. I'll be signing away parental rights. The DNA test will show she's not mine anyway." The fabricated test. Part of their plan to erase my daughter from existence. "Okay," I said quietly. He blinked, surprised. "Okay. That's it. What else can I say? You're right. I have nothing. I have no way to fight you." I let my voice break. "I just want this to be over." Thomas and Diane exchanged glances, and I saw satisfaction bloom on both their faces. "Good," Diane said. "It's about time you accepted reality. Can I ask you something?" I looked at Thomas, channeling every ounce of heartbreak and betrayal I felt. "Did you ever love me? Even a little?" For a moment, something almost like discomfort crossed his face, but then he shrugged. "Does it matter?" "I suppose not." I picked up my suitcase. "Goodbye, Thomas." "Wait." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "Divorce papers. Sign them. Get them notarized. Send them back within a week. If you don't, my lawyers will make this very ugly for you." I took the envelope with shaking hands. "I will."
Good.
He opened the door. "Don't come back here, Elena. You're trespassing. If you do, I'll call the cops." I walked out, down the porch steps where I'd bled and begged, down the driveway where Alexei had found me. I didn't look back. Alexei's car pulled up within seconds. I climbed in, and as soon as the door closed, I started laughing. Wild, slightly hysterical laughter that made Alexei look at me with concern. "Are you okay?" "I got everything," I gasped between laughs. "Bugs planted. Files copied. And they think I'm defeated. They think they won. Did they hurt you?" The laughter died, replaced only with words. "No, but Alexei." Diane said she wished my baby had died. She said it would have been simpler. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Then we show no mercy." "None." I agreed. "Burn them down." Over the next 3 weeks, Alexei and I listened to hours of recordings from the bugs I'd planted. We heard Thomas on the phone with his distributors. We heard Diane coordinating shipments. We heard them celebrating their victory over me, laughing about how easy it had been to break me. And we gathered evidence. So much evidence. But we didn't move yet because the plan required perfect timing. While we waited, Alexei took care of me. He made sure I ate, rested, went to my prenatal appointments. He converted his guest room into a nursery, filling it with things I hadn't dared to buy yet: a crib, a changing table, tiny clothes and blankets and toys. "You're nesting," I told him one afternoon, watching him assemble a rocking chair with intense focus. "Someone has to. You're too busy plotting revenge." He looked up and smiled. "Besides, I'm going to be Uncle Alexei. I need to prepare." "You'll spoil her." "Absolutely. It's my job." The normalcy of these moments, the quiet domesticity of preparing for my daughter while simultaneously planning to destroy her father, should have felt bizarre. But it felt right. This was family. Not the fairy tale I tried to force with Thomas, but something real and solid and earned. My daughter seemed to agree. She was active and healthy, growing right on schedule. Sometimes I'd sit in the nursery Alexei had created and talk to her, telling her about the world she'd be born into, about the uncle who already loved her, about how we'd be okay without her father. But at night, I'd go back to the recordings and the files, and I'd feed my rage. Finally, after 3 weeks of preparation, everything was ready. Tomorrow, Alexei said, we start the endgame. Phase 1 was financial. Alexei had contacts everywhere, including in banking. Using the evidence we'd gathered, proof of Thomas's money laundering, the unexplained deposits, the shell corporations, we triggered a fraud investigation. By Monday morning, all of Thomas's bank accounts were frozen pending review. We listened to him find out via the bug in his home office. What do you mean, frozen? His voice was panicked. I have a mortgage payment due. I have. You can't just freeze my accounts without warning. We heard him calling lawyers, calling his bank, calling Lawrence Hartman. Everyone gave him the same answer. Federal investigation. Nothing they could do. It could take weeks to resolve. Phase 2 was professional. Anonymous tips went to Thomas's employer, the legitimate pharmaceutical company, about irregularities in his sales reports, about trips that didn't match his itinerary, about inventory that went missing. Nothing directly illegal yet, just enough to trigger an internal investigation. By Wednesday, Thomas was put on administrative leave pending review. We heard him tell Diane, his voice shaking with rage and fear. They're auditing everything. Every trip, every sale, every expense report. If they find the shipments, they won't, Diane said. But she sounded uncertain. We've been careful. Have we?
Because someone is targeting me.
The bank thing. Now this? That's not a coincidence. You think, Elena? Thomas laughed bitterly. She's probably sleeping in a gutter somewhere. She couldn't manage this if she tried. Oh, the satisfaction of hearing that. Of knowing he had no idea what was coming. Phase 3 was personal. Alexei had people watch Thomas, follow him, document everything. We had photos now. Thomas and Jessica together, kissing, his hand on her pregnant belly, going into hotels in the middle of the day. These photos found their way to Jessica's mother. Mrs. Hartman, it turned out, had no idea her daughter was dating a married man. She definitely didn't know Jessica was pregnant by him, and she absolutely didn't know that her husband, Lawrence, was involved in illegal activities with Thomas. The explosion was spectacular. We didn't hear it directly, no bugs in their house, but we heard the aftermath when Lawrence came to Thomas's house, furious. My wife is filing for divorce. She's taking everything, and she's threatening to go to the police about. He lowered his voice, but our bugs picked it up anyway. About the business. He knows, Thomas. Somehow she knows. How? How could she know? Jessica told her. She was crying, upset about you being married. And it all came out. The pregnancy, the promises you made, all of it. And my wife started asking questions, looking into things, and now everything is falling apart. What about Jessica? What about her? She's 23 and pregnant by a married man who's under federal investigation. Her life is ruined. My marriage is ruined, and if we don't figure out how to contain this, we will. Thomas said. But he sounded desperate. We need to be smart about this. Smart? You call this smart? Your accounts are frozen. You're on leave from work. My wife knows everything. She doesn't know everything. She knows about the affair. She doesn't know about the shipments, the real business.
Yet.
She doesn't know yet. They argued for another hour, their panic growing, both of them trying to figure out who was targeting them and how to stop it. Not once did they suspect me. Phase 4 was legal. Using the evidence we'd gathered, Alexei's lawyers filed for divorce on my behalf. But not a quiet, simple divorce. A fault divorce, citing abandonment, cruelty, and infidelity. We included the medical records from the night I was hospitalized, with detailed notes about exposure and stress-induced contractions. We included photos of the locked door with my bloody handprints. We included testimony from neighbors who heard me screaming. And we demanded full custody, child support, alimony, and half of all marital assets. The papers were served to Thomas on Friday, exactly 4 weeks after he'd thrown me out in the rain. We heard him open the envelope, heard the long silence as he read, then heard the explosion. That bastard. She's suing me for abandonment, for cruelty. She's asking for half of everything. Let her ask, Diane said coldly. With the prenup and the evidence of her affair, she won't get a penny. Mom, my accounts are frozen. I can't pay for lawyers. I can't pay for anything. Then use the reserve funds. What reserve funds? Everything is tied up in, he stopped. Unless the offshore accounts. The ones for the business. If I touch those, the investigation might. Do you have a choice? Silence. Then I'll call the lawyer. Perfect. The more money he spent fighting me, the less he'd have when everything came crashing down. And crash it would. Phase 5 was the kill shot. Everything we'd done so far had been setting the stage, tightening the noose. Now it was time to drop the hammer. Alexei had compiled everything. Every recording, every financial document, every piece of evidence of Thomas and Diane's drug trafficking operation, the money laundering, the illegal shipments, the falsified sales reports, the connections to organized crime. All of it carefully documented and verified. We had two options for who received this package, the DA or the FBI. Alexei suggested we give it to both. Redundancy, he said with a cold smile, in case one agency moves slower than the other. But I wanted one more thing first. One final twist of a knife. I want to face them, I told Alexei before the arrests. I want them to know it was me. He studied me carefully. That's dangerous and unnecessary. The satisfaction of watching them destroyed should be enough. Should be. But it's not. I placed my hand on my belly where my daughter, now 7 months along, was stretching and pushing against my ribs. They tried to erase her.
They wanted her dead.
I need them to look me in the eyes and know that she survived, that I survived, and that we destroyed them. Alexei was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, but I'm coming with you, and we do this my way. Controlled. Safe. With backup. Agreed. We planned it for the following Monday. By then, Thomas would be desperate. No money, no job, facing a divorce that would take everything, with federal investigators circling closer. He'd be vulnerable, off balance, exactly where we wanted him. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, feeling my daughter move inside me, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 6 months ago, I'd been a different person. Naive, trusting, desperate to believe in love and family and happily ever after. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, sharper, forged in rain and blood and betrayal. I should have felt guilty about what we were going to do. But I didn't. I felt righteous. Monday morning dawned cold and clear. I dressed carefully. Maternity clothes that actually fit properly, makeup, my hair styled. I wanted to look strong, healthy, thriving. I wanted them to see that they hadn't broken me. Alexei drove us to the house. This time, he didn't park down the street. He pulled right into the driveway, his expensive car a statement of power and wealth. You're sure about this? He asked one more time. Completely. We had 2 of Alexei's security people with us. Large, silent men who positioned themselves strategically as we approached the front door. This wasn't a social call. This was a reckoning. I rang the doorbell. Thomas answered, and the shock on his face was delicious. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled, with dark circles under his eyes and the pallor of someone under extreme stress. Elena, what are you? His eyes moved past me to Alexei, and something like fear flickered across his face. Who's this? My family, I said simply. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. My lawyer will be very busy soon. Yes, this won't take long. I pushed past him into the house, my house, that he'd stolen from me, and walked into the living room like I owned it. Diane emerged from the kitchen, and her face went pale when she saw me. How dare you come here? Thomas, call the police. The police will be here soon enough, Alexei said quietly, his accent thickening slightly. But first, Elena has something to say. I turned to face them both. Thomas and Diane, the two people who had tried to destroy me. They stood together, united in their cruelty, and I felt nothing but contempt. I wanted you to know, I said, my voice steady and clear, that it was me. All of it. The frozen accounts, the federal investigation, the internal audit, Jessica's mother finding out. All of it was me. Thomas stared at me like I'd grown a second head. That's impossible. You're nobody. You have nothing. I have him. I gestured to Alexei. My brother. Not by blood, but by choice. The family I should have trusted all along instead of wasting 2 years on you. Brother? Diane's voice was sharp. You said you had no family. I lied. Or rather, I was ashamed of where I came from, so I hid it. Alexei Volov. Perhaps you've heard the name? I saw recognition dawn in Thomas's eyes, followed by pure terror. Even people on the periphery of criminal activity knew that name. Alexei had built an empire, and while he diversified into legitimate business, everyone knew where he'd started. That's right, Alexei said softly. And you hurt my sister. You threw her out in the rain while she was pregnant. You tried to destroy her, to erase her child from existence. He took a step forward, and both Thomas and Diane instinctively stepped back. Did you really think there would be no consequences? This is insane, Thomas said, but his voice shook. You can't just, this is harassment. This is justice, I interrupted. You wanted to play games with fake evidence and fabricated affairs? I played with real evidence. Every illegal shipment you've made in the past 5 years, every dollar you've laundered, every law you've broken, I have recordings, financial records, photographs, testimony, everything. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. Am I? Tell me, Thomas, what were you doing on March 15th in Chicago? What was in the packages you delivered to the warehouse on South Main? Who did you meet at the Riverfront Hotel in Miami last month? His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. I turned to Diane. And you? Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your late husband's criminal connections? About how you took over his operation? About how you brought Thomas into it, turned your own son into a drug trafficker? You can't prove any of that, she said.
But her voice was weak.
I can. I have. And in about. I checked my watch. 15 minutes. Federal agents will arrive with warrants for both your arrests. They have everything I have, plus a few bonuses. Wire transfer records, communications with your distributors, testimony from people in your network who were very eager to make deals when the FBI came calling. No. Thomas shook his head violently. No, this isn't happening. You're lying. I'm the woman you locked out in the rain, I said, my voice dropping to something cold and hard. I'm the woman who begged you to let her inside while your baby was bleeding out of her. I'm the woman you told was worthless, who came from nothing, who would never amount to anything. Look at me now, Thomas. Look at what nothing accomplished. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw the moment he understood. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a game. This was the end of everything he'd built, everything he'd taken for granted. Elena, please. His voice cracked, and he actually dropped to his knees. Please, we can work this out. I made mistakes. I know I did, but what? You'll change? You'll be better? You love me after all? I laughed, bitter and sharp. Save it. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your excuses. I want you to feel what I felt that night. Helpless. Terrified. Completely alone. What about Jessica? Diane tried, grasping at straws. She's pregnant with Thomas's child, too. You destroy that baby's future just for revenge. Jessica is 23 years old and complicit in an affair with a married man. She made her choices. I softened slightly. But her baby is innocent, just like mine. Which is why the evidence I provided to the FBI doesn't include her. She'll face social consequences, sure, but she won't go to prison unlike you two. You bastard. Diane hissed, her mask finally dropping completely. You ungrateful, vindictive little bastard. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing but pain. I cut her off. You criticized me, belittled me, made me feel worthless every single day. And when I needed help, when I was bleeding and terrified, you watched through the window and smiled.
So, no, Diane.
You don't get to play victim now. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Thomas's head snapped up. No, 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 no. Yes, Alexei said with satisfaction. I'd say you have about 2 minutes before they arrive. I suggest you spend it wisely. Maybe call a lawyer? Oh, wait. You can't afford one anymore, can you? The sirens were right outside now.
Car doors slamming.
Heavy footsteps approaching. I walked to the door and opened it, revealing a squad of federal agents with weapons drawn. Elena Adonis? The lead agent asked.
Yes.
These are the individuals I spoke with you about. Thomas Adonis and Diane Adonis. I stepped aside, gesturing them in. They're all yours. What happened next was chaos. Agents flooding the house, reading rights, snapping handcuffs on both Thomas and Diane. Thomas was crying, actually crying, begging them to wait, to listen, to understand. Diane was silent, staring at me with pure hatred. Good. Let her hate me. Hate didn't matter when you were looking at 20 years in federal prison. As they were being let out, Thomas tried one more time. Elena, please. Think of our daughter. Don't let her grow up knowing her father is in prison. I stepped in front of him, forcing him to meet my eyes. Our daughter will grow up knowing her father was a criminal who tried to erase her existence. She'll grow up knowing her mother was strong enough to fight back. And she'll grow up surrounded by family who actually loves her, Uncle Alexei, and whoever else I choose to bring into our lives. But you'll be a cautionary tale. Nothing more. His face crumpled, and the agents dragged him away. Diane paused as they led her past me. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. You just haven't accepted it yet. She was pulled outside, loaded into a federal vehicle, and driven away. I stood in the doorway of the house that had been my prison, watching them disappear, and felt empty. Not satisfied, not triumphant, just hollow. Alexei's hand settled on my shoulder. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel better watching them arrested, knowing they're going to prison. I thought it would fix something inside me. Revenge rarely does. But justice. He turned me to face him. Justice gives you closure. The ability to move forward. They can't hurt you anymore, Elena. You're free. Free?
Sigh.
Or had I just traded one prison for another? This one made of anger and bitterness instead of love and trust. As if sensing my turmoil, my daughter kicked hard against my ribs. I pressed my hand to my belly, feeling her move, and something settled inside me. No, I wasn't trapped. Because I hadn't done this for revenge. Not really. I'd done it for her. To make sure she grew up in a world where her father couldn't hurt her, where his mother couldn't poison her, where justice actually meant something. Let's go home, I said to Alexei. We left the house. Let the federal agents search it, tear it apart, find whatever other evidence they needed. I didn't care about the building anymore. There had never been a home. Home was wherever my daughter and I were safe. And right now, that was with Alexei. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and unexpected complications. The arrests made the news. Local pharmaceutical sales rep and his mother caught running a multi-million-dollar prescription drug trafficking operation. The media ate it up, especially when details emerged about Thomas's affair, his pregnant girlfriend, and his abandoned pregnant wife. I became a tabloid story. Pregnant woman's revenge. How she took down her drug dealer husband. Some outlets painted me as a hero. Others suggested I was vindictive, that I should have just divorced quietly and moved on. I didn't care what they thought. I had more important things to focus on, like the divorce. With Thomas in federal custody, unable to afford lawyers, and facing overwhelming evidence of his crimes, the proceedings moved quickly. The prenup was invalidated. Turns out infidelity clauses don't hold up when the accuser fabricated evidence and committed multiple felonies. I was awarded full custody of our daughter, the house, which I immediately put up for sale. I never wanted to see it again, and half of whatever legitimate assets remained after the federal seizure. It wasn't much. Most of Thomas's wealth had been illegal and was confiscated, but it was enough, combined with Alexi's support, to start over. Lawrence Hartman was also arrested, his pharmaceutical company imploding under the scandal. Jessica's mother filed for divorce and took their daughter to live with family in another state. I felt a twinge of sympathy for Jessica. She'd been stupid and selfish, but she was also young and had been manipulated by older, more experienced criminals. I had Alexi's lawyer send her a message. I had no interest in pursuing her legally. Her baby deserved a chance at life, even if her father was going to prison. She never responded, but I hope she got out, started over, did better. As for Diane, she maintained her hatred of me right up until the trial. She refused plea deals, convinced she could beat the charges. She was wrong. The evidence was overwhelming, and the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding her guilty on all counts. 25 years. She'd be in her 80s before she saw freedom again. Thomas took a plea deal, 15 years, in exchange for testifying against his mother and providing information about the distribution network. His lawyer tried to arrange for visitation rights with our daughter, but I fought it and won. No contact until she was 18, and then only if she chose it. I doubted she ever would. Through all of this, I grew bigger, slower, more uncomfortable. My daughter was running out of room, and my body was preparing for labor. The doctors said everything looked good. She'd suffered no lasting effects from that terrible night in the rain. She was healthy, active, and measuring right on schedule. I decided to name her Natasha. It was Russian, a nod to Alexi's heritage, and it meant born on Christmas. She wasn't due until January, but I liked the symbolism. A gift. Something precious and miraculous. You know, she'll hate being named after a holiday. Alexei teased when I told him. Then she'll have something to complain about in therapy, I said with a smile. Along with everything else, you're going to be a good mother. How do you know? Because you're already thinking about her future therapist. That's planning ahead. I laughed and it felt good. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe, without the weight of rage and fear crushing my chest. The house sold quickly. Apparently, the notoriety actually helped, with true crime enthusiasts eager to own a piece of the story. I used the money to buy a smaller place near Alexi's loft. A 2-bedroom apartment with good light and a park nearby. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Truly mine. With only my name on the deed. Alexei helped me move in, set up the nursery, prepare for Natasha's arrival. He was more excited than I was, constantly buying tiny clothes and toys and books. She can't read yet, I pointed out when he arrived with a box of board books. She will eventually. I want to be prepared. You're going to spoil her rotten. That's the plan. I was nesting, preparing, waiting. The trial ended. The media moved on to other scandals. And slowly, quietly, I started to heal. Not completely. I still had nightmares about the rain, about the locked door, about Thomas's cold eyes. I still flinched when I heard thunder. I still had moments of rage, so intense I had to breathe through them. But I also had moments of peace. Of sitting in the nursery, feeling Natasha move, imagining the life we'd build together. Of having dinner with Alexei, laughing at his terrible jokes, feeling safe and loved in a way I never had with Thomas. This was family. Real family. Not the fairy tale I tried to force, but something harder one, and more valuable. 2 weeks before my due date, I got an unexpected visitor. I was home alone, sorting through baby clothes and trying to decide what to pack in my hospital bag, when there was a knock at the door. I checked the peephole. Alexei had installed a security system and made me promise to always check before opening, and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Middle-aged, well-dressed, with kind eyes and an uncertain expression. Can I help you? I called through the door. Are you Elena Adonis? I'm Margaret Patrick. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. I'm sorry to bother you, but I was hoping we could talk. My blood ran cold. CPS? Had Thomas somehow, but no, he was in prison. He couldn't. I opened the door, keeping the chain on. What's this about? May I come in? I promise this isn't an investigation or anything troubling. I just have some information I thought you should know. Every instinct screamed danger, but her eyes were genuinely kind, and I had Alexei on speed dial if anything went wrong. I let her in, gestured to the couch, and sat across from her in the armchair, my hand protectively on my belly. What's this about? I repeated. Margaret pulled out a folder. I'm actually not here in an official capacity. I'm here because I knew your mother. The world tilted. What? Your biological mother, Anna Rostova. She was one of my cases years ago when you were first placed in the system. I couldn't breathe. My mother was a ghost, a blank space in my history. I'd been told she abandoned me at a hospital when I was 3 months old, that she'd never been found, that I'd probably never know who she was. I don't understand. I managed. Anna didn't abandon you, Margaret said gently. She was murdered by your father, a man named Viktor Rostov. He was involved in organized crime. And when Anna tried to leave him to protect you, he killed her. You were found with her body. You were too young to remember. Thank God. Tears streamed down my face. Why are you telling me this now? Because Viktor died last year in prison. And because when your case made the news, what happened with your husband, I saw your name. Elena Rostova. You kept your mother's last name. And I thought you deserved to know the truth. That your mother loved you. That she died trying to save you. She pulled a photo from the folder and handed it to me. A young woman with dark hair and my eyes, holding a baby with a smile of pure love on her face. This is the only photo we found in her belongings. I kept it, hoping someday I could give it to you. I held the photo with shaking hands, looking at a mother I'd never known, seeing love I'd never felt from her, but that had always been there. She was brave, Margaret continued, leaving a dangerous man, trying to protect her child, even knowing what it might cost her. You come from strength, Elena, from love. I thought you should know that before your daughter is born, so you can tell her where she comes from. I couldn't speak. I just held the photo and cried for the mother I'd lost, for the life we might have had, for the pattern I'd almost repeated by choosing a cruel man. But I'd broken the pattern. I'd fought back. I'd protected my daughter, just like my mother had tried to protect me. After Margaret left, I sat in the nursery, holding the photo, feeling Natasha move inside me, and felt something shift. The hollow anger that had driven me for months finally began to ease, replaced by something softer, but no less powerful. Purpose. I would raise my daughter to be strong, to trust her instincts, to never settle for less than she deserved. I would tell her about her grandmother Anna, who fought for love, and about Uncle Alexei, who proved that family is what you make it. And yes, about her father, so she'd understand that sometimes the people who should love you will hurt you. And that's when you have to love yourself enough to walk away, or in my case, to burn their world down and rise from the ashes. Natasha was born on January 15th, 3 days past her due date. After 18 hours of labor that nearly killed me. Hey, it felt like it was killing me. Alexei was there the whole time, holding my hand, letting me scream at him, providing iced chips and encouragement, and threatening the doctors if they didn't give me more pain medication. You're doing great, he kept saying. I hate you. I gasped between contractions. I know. Keep breathing. When Natasha finally arrived, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that could shatter glass, I forgot every moment of pain. They placed her on my chest. This tiny, perfect creature, and I fell in love in a way I'd never experienced before. This was what love was supposed to be. Unconditional, fierce, protective. Not the desperate, anxious thing I'd felt for Thomas, always wondering if I was enough. This was certain, absolute. I would die for this child. Kill for her. I had nearly killed for her. She's perfect, Alexei whispered, tears streaming down his face. Elena, she's perfect. Yeah, I agreed, unable to look away from her face. She really is. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Standard procedure, making sure Natasha could feed and that I was healing properly. The nurses were wonderful, teaching me how to nurse, how to change diapers, how to survive on 2 hours of sleep. Alexei visited every day, bringing flowers and stuffed animals and more tiny clothes. He held Natasha like she was made of glass, talking to her in Russian, promising her the world. "You're going to be such a troublemaker, I can tell," he told her. "Just like your mother. But Uncle Alexei will teach you how to be smart about it. Yes, how to not get caught. Please don't teach my daughter to be a criminal," I said, but I was smiling. "I'm teaching her to be strategic. There's a difference." On the day we were discharged, I was packing up our things when there was a knock on the door. A woman stood there, older, official-looking, with a badge that said Prison Liaison Services. My stomach dropped. "Yes, Mrs. Adonis? I'm here because your husband, Thomas Adonis, has requested to see his daughter. He's entitled to one supervised visit before the no-contact order takes full effect." "Absolutely not," I said, probably too loudly.
No.
"She's not seeing her.
Not now.
Not ever. Mrs. Adonis, legally, he has a right. He has no rights. He threw me out in the rain when I was pregnant with her. He tried to fabricate evidence to claim she wasn't his so he could avoid responsibility. He's in prison for drug trafficking. He is not seeing my daughter.
The
court order says no contact until she's 18. Check your paperwork again." I'd had Alexei's lawyers go over every word of that order. I knew exactly what it said. The woman checked her tablet, and her face fell. "I apologize. You're correct. I was given outdated information. Tell Thomas that Natasha is doing wonderful," I said coldly, "and that she'll never know him as anything but the criminal who tried to destroy her mother. Now, please leave." She left. I locked the door, sat down with my daughter in my arms, and cried. Not from sadness. From relief. From the certainty that I'd protected her. That Thomas would never touch her, never hurt her, never make her feel the way he'd made me feel. "You're safe," I whispered to her. "I promise. You're safe and you're loved, and you'll never have to beg anyone to let you in from the cold." She yawned, tiny and perfect, and fell asleep against my chest. We went home. To our apartment. Mine and Natasha's, and in a way Alexei's, since he was there so often he might as well have lived there. He'd taken 2 weeks off from his various business ventures to help me adjust to motherhood. Those first weeks were a blur of feeding, sleeping, crying, both of us, and slowly learning how to be a mother. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than destroying Thomas. Harder than surviving his betrayal. But it was also the best. Every smile, even when people said they were just gas. Every tiny hand wrapped around my finger. Every moment of her sleeping peacefully in my arms made everything worth it. Alexei was a natural. He could get her to stop crying when I couldn't. Could change diapers faster than me. Could function on even less sleep. He read to her every night, fairy tales in Russian that I didn't understand, but that seemed to soothe her. "You're better at this than I am," I told him one night, watching him rock Natasha to sleep. "Impossible. You're her mother. You're perfect at it." "I don't feel perfect. I feel like I'm failing half the time." "That means you're doing it right. The only parents who think they're perfect are the ones who aren't paying attention." He looked down at Natasha, his expression soft in a way I'd never seen before. "She's lucky to have you, Elena. You fought for her before she was even born. You burned down your whole world to keep her safe. That's love." Maybe he was right. Maybe love wasn't the soft, gentle thing I'd thought it was with Thomas. Maybe love was fierce and protective and willing to destroy anything that threatened it. As Natasha grew 1 month, 2 months, 3, I slowly pieced myself back together. Not into the woman I'd been before Thomas. That woman was gone. But into someone new. Harder, yes, but also stronger, more certain of who I was and what I'd accept. I started therapy, not because I felt guilty about what I'd done to Thomas and Diane, I didn't, but because I needed to process the trauma, to make sure I didn't pass my damage on to Natasha. My therapist was good. She didn't judge me for the revenge. Didn't try to make me feel bad about it. Instead, she helped me see it for what it was, a trauma response, a way of reclaiming power when I'd felt powerless. "Do you regret it?" she asked during one session. I thought about it carefully.
No.
I regret trusting Thomas. I regret ignoring my instincts about Diane. I regret not calling Alexei sooner. But destroying them? No, they deserved it. And you feel safe now?
Yes.
For the first time in my adult life, I feel safe. And I did. Living in my own place, with my daughter, with Alexei as our family. I finally felt like I'd found solid ground. I started freelancing again. Graphic design, work I could do from home while Natasha napped. It felt good to use my brain for something other than revenge plots and baby schedules. Alexei encouraged me to go back to school, to finish the degree I'd started before I met Thomas. You're smart, Elena. You should use it. Maybe when Natasha's older, I said, but I was considering it. 6 months after Natasha's birth, I got a letter from Thomas. My first instinct was to burn it without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Elena, it began. Asterisk, I know you won't want to hear from me. I know I don't have the right to ask anything of you, but I'm asking anyway.
I'm sorry.
I know that's not enough, that it doesn't undo what I did, but it's true. I was cruel, selfish, cowardly. I let my mother poison me against you. I let greed and fear rule my choices. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid to see what I had. I think about that night a lot. The night I locked you out. I hear your voice begging to be let in. I hear you telling me you were bleeding, and I did nothing. I stayed inside with my mother and told myself you were being dramatic. I could have killed you. I could have killed our daughter, and I nearly did. All because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd become. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm glad she's alive. I'm glad you survived. And I'm glad you destroyed me, because I deserved it. Tell Natasha, when she's old enough, that her father was a monster. But tell her that her mother is a warrior who protected her from him. She's lucky to have you. I'm sorry for everything. Thomas. Asterisk, I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer with all the other documents from that time. The divorce papers, the medical records, the news articles about the arrest. Someday, when Natasha was older, if she wanted to know the whole story, it would be there. But I didn't respond. Thomas didn't deserve my words, my forgiveness, or my acknowledgement. His guilt was his to live with. I had more important things to focus on. Natasha is 3 years old today, and she's currently helping Uncle Alexei frost her birthday cake, which means she's eating more frosting than is actually making it onto the cake. But he's letting her, because he's completely wrapped around her tiny finger. Mama, look. She holds up blue-stained hands proudly. I'm blue. I see that. Maybe we should get some of that frosting on the cake, too. Uncle Alexei says I'm the birthday girl, and I make the rules.
I
shoot Alexei a look. He shrugs, completely unrepentant. She is the birthday girl. You're creating a monster. She's perfect, he says, kissing the top of Natasha's dark head. Just like her mother. We're in my apartment. Our apartment, really, since Alexei finally officially moved in 6 months ago. It made sense. He was here every day anyway, helping with Natasha. And when he asked if we wanted to look for a bigger place together, I said yes. Not romantically. Alexei and I have never been like that. We'll never be like that. But he's family, as partners in raising this incredible, stubborn, brilliant little girl. Absolutely. Our new place has 3 bedrooms. One for me, one for Alexei, and one for Natasha, who has already decorated hers with every princess and dinosaur toy she could convince Uncle Alexei to buy, which is all of them. I wasn't kidding about him being wrapped around her finger. Life is good. Really good. I finished my degree last year. Graphic design with honors. I work from home but also take on select freelance clients. Alexei has continued to diversify his business interests, going more and more legitimate, partially because he wants to be a good role model for Natasha. We're not rich, but we're comfortable. More importantly, we're happy. Natasha doesn't know her father. When she asks, and she has because 3-year-olds are observant and notice when other kids have daddies, I tell her the truth in age-appropriate ways. Your daddy made some bad choices and had to go away. But you have me and Uncle Alexei, and we love you more than anything in the whole world. More than ice cream? She asked once. More than all the ice cream ever made. Well, that's a lot. It is. Thomas is still in prison. He'll be there for another 12 years at least. Diane is there too, though I heard she's not doing well. Age and prison don't mix well.
I feel nothing about that.
Not satisfaction, not guilt, nothing. They're simply not part of my life anymore. Jessica, I heard, had a boy. She moved across the country, changed her name, and is trying to start over. I hope she succeeds. Her son deserves a chance just like Natasha did. Lawrence Hartman also went to prison. His family scattered. The pharmaceutical company went bankrupt. The whole network collapsed. And I'm okay with all of it. Sometimes people ask me, my therapist, friends I've made, other mothers at the park, if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I'd been less brutal, more forgiving. The answer is always no. Thomas and Diane tried to destroy me. They locked me out in the rain while I was pregnant, hoping I'd lose my baby or disappear in shame. They fabricated evidence, manipulated the legal system, and treated me like I was worthless. I showed them I wasn't. I showed them that the woman from nothing, the girl from foster care, the wife they thought was weak, she was strong enough to burn their entire world down. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Mama, cake's ready. Natasha announces, her face now entirely blue from frosting. Let me see this masterpiece. The cake is a disaster. Frosting everywhere. Sprinkles in chaotic patterns. 3 candles stuck in at odd angles. It's perfect. We sing happy birthday. Natasha makes a wish and blows out her candles with Alexei's help. We eat too much cake and ice cream. She opens presents, books from me, and an obscene number of toys from Alexei. Later, after the party is over and Natasha is tucked into bed, exhausted and happy, I sit in the living room with Alexei. Thank you, I tell him. For what? Spoiling your daughter? That's my job. For everything. For finding me that night, for helping me fight back, for being the family I needed. He takes my hand, squeezes it gently. You're my family too, Elena. You always have been. From the group home to now, you've been the one constant good thing in my life. We did okay, didn't we? Despite everything. We did better than okay. We won. And we did. Not because Thomas is in prison or because Diane is suffering or because I got revenge. We won because I'm sitting here, safe and loved, with my daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room. Because I broke the cycle of abuse and chose a different path. Because I taught myself that I deserved better. And then I made sure I got it. The girl who stood on that porch in the rain, bleeding and broken, she didn't just survive. She became someone new, someone stronger, someone who would never, ever beg to be let in again. Because now I build my own doors. I decide who gets to enter. And anyone who tries to lock me out, well, they've seen what happens. And they're still paying for it. I walk into Natasha's room, peeking to see her sleeping with her favorite stuffed bear, a gift from Alexei, of course. She's peaceful, secure, loved. This is what I fought for. Not revenge, though that was satisfying. Not justice, though that mattered. I fought for this moment. For my daughter to sleep safe, without fear, in a home filled with love. For her to grow up knowing that her mother was strong enough to protect her from anything, even from her own father. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, desperate for approval, willing to accept cruelty because I was so afraid of being alone. Convinced that any family was better than no family. I was wrong. The right family is everything. And sometimes you have to burn down the wrong one to make room for it. I kiss Natasha's forehead, whisper, I love you, and close her door softly. Tomorrow I'll wake up and make breakfast. I'll take Natasha to the park. I'll work on my design projects. I'll have dinner with Alexei and discuss his latest business venture. I'll live my life. The one I fought for, bled for, destroyed for. And I'll do it without apology, without regret, without shame. Because I'm Elena Rostova, survivor, mother, warrior. And I'm finally free. Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Good luck.